So when you was a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
First of all, I wanted to be a vet. And then as I was getting older, I wanted to be a midwife, and I started midwifery training at college. But I had a really bad car accident when I was 17, smashed my leg up. I was in hospital basically for a year, and that meant that I'd never physically be able to manage being a midwife. I was cross that I couldn't be a midwife anymore. I was cross that I had to learn to walk again, because the first time I got out of bed after that length of time, I could barely stand up, and then when I did, I was in a plaster from my chest down to my ankle. That was quite difficult. And I have to be honest, I think I was very institutionalised through that experience, because I spent such a long time in the hospital, and for some people that put them off and made them terrified of hospitals. It made me feel very safe. I think for the first time I felt safe.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Boardroom. I am your podcast host, Luke, and I have a guest today that, I have to say this because I don't really get it very often. She sent a very authentic email to us, obviously requesting to sort of be a guest on the podcast, but I think her story is going to touch so many people's, not just ears, but hearts as well. And I think where this comes from is actually her profession. Her name is Georgie. She is a midlife and menopausal coach, and she's really striving to help females sort of stand confident again and really rebuild that. So I think there's going to be a lot for us to talk about. She's at a stage in her life where she never actually envisioned her path being where it is exactly today. So that's always a cool piece to sort of touch on. And we connected through social media. And this is why, I love to share this piece, because as we all know, even though we can feel a little bit disconnected, we can feel a little bit lonely, social media can also bring some great people together. So I'm really excited, Georgie, to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that introduction. That was lovely. Gave me goosebumps. Thank you.
No. Well, obviously, thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. But seriously, I've seen a bit of your stuff as well. And I think there's so much information out there. But I think the way that people word things, the way that people sort of put themselves out there, I think that's really where we say this, don't we, in business and life as well. Like, people buy people. And you certainly stand out in that from what you share.
Thank you. No, I try to, and just being authentic, because I'm not going to be the coach for some people, but I'm going to be absolutely the coach for other people, and it needs to be an authentic connection. So I can only be myself on there, and I hope to just welcome people into my world and hold space for them. That's really what I want to do and what my aim is.
No, and that's really great. I think just in like everything today where it's all speed, and that space is that slowing down, checking in part, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's it to a T, because we want everything now. We want everything to be delivered to us immediately. There's almost a competitiveness to how busy we are. Oh, well, I'm busy. No, I'm busier. And it's like our worth comes from that a little bit. Just taking that time to slow, know that rest and slowness and space is just ideal for collecting our thoughts and gathering ourselves, and that's okay. It's okay to have those things rather than thinking that we've got to be on the go all of the time, because I think that's the world that is seen out there, isn't it, with the social media. I mean, social media is great, but it can also just make us fast-paced, can't it? You swipe, and there's never time just to slow down and have that space to actually process any thoughts.
Definitely. I've been in that place as well. I'm sure you've been in that place. But do you know what? It's good that you share that. I've got to ask this question. Obviously, you kind of putting your title as I'm a midlife coach. So we always, this is a term that gets flown around. Like, probably where I'm going with this. Like, oh, I've got a midlife crisis. Was there a midlife crisis in your life that you kind of come out of, or just out of curiosity, really?
I think I've had many midlife crises. Someone asked me what age is midlife to have a midlife crisis.
Right.
And actually, for me, it's more about the experience that you go through at that moment. And it could be someone in early 30s, or it could be in their 20s, to be honest, but it could be someone earlier on. It could be someone much later on. But I think there are times in your life when you go through a moment of just don't get where I am or who I am anymore. And it could happen for various reasons. And so I think I've had many of those through my life. I think, from my email, that lots of things have happened to me that have made me think I need to work out who I am again. But the one that brought me to this path now was perimenopause. Alongside COVID, because they happened, I realised I was perimenopausal in COVID times. And obviously that was all a weird world anyway, wasn't it? But
sure.
I just got to the point where I just kept saying, someone let me off this ride for a little bit. I just needed to stop and think and recalibrate, and I needed that space. And it was that. And through having coaching for myself, which I stumbled upon, it happened accidentally. It wasn't something I went and found. I found that. And I realised that that was what I needed. I needed that space, the place to explore who I was. And I've had therapy lots of times over the years, and it's great for many people, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't working for me. I needed something that was going to take me forward and give me ways that I could action to move forward, rather than going over and over the old stuff that had happened to me. And coaching gave me that, and it just brought me back to life again. And so, yeah, it was that experience of perimenopause, having to stop, having to think, having to work out who I was, digging deep into what my values are and what my beliefs are, which is something I'd never, ever done before. And having that experience to be able to slow down and do that was my midlife crisis, I guess.
Right, so there's a lot of good stuff there. Thank you for sharing that as well. Obviously we'll be delving into this journey deeper as well. But what sort of struck a chord with me is how and by the way, I'm absolutely in agreement with you. I've had therapy myself, and it's worked wonders. I think again, I guess it's the timing, isn't it? Of when where that sort of comes into your life, right? So like when you talk about these midlife crises, I was exactly the same. Coaching for me was the creation part that I guess I sort of wanted. I wanted that expansion with my mind. I didn't want to just, like what you just said, relay. So just for the listeners, I'm obviously a coach. You're a coach as well. And you might get the odd sort of term, oh, that felt like a therapy session. But then you're sort of actually coaching them, but they might deem it as a therapy session. In your own experience, what would you say the differences between coaching and therapy?
I've been asked this quite a lot, and it's really hard because I think it's very nuanced. And I think everyone will have a slightly different opinion. How I cleared it up in my mind is, this might be a really weird analogy, but it's a bit like a car. Therapy to me is the car going in and making sure everything is structurally safe, everything is fit for purpose. But coaching is like driving the car, making sure it's going in the right direction, making sure it's got enough fuel in it. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but basically, I mean, there's absolutely a place for therapy, and there are people who've come to me and I've said, no, I can't coach you. You need to go and sort out some things first in therapy. Go in and get all those things sorted out and be comfortable with where you are. Be comfortable in where you are, but knowing that you want more out of life. And coaching can help you have that direction, and help you work on not just your goals, but just give you a focus for moving forward. I don't know, does that make any sense at all?
Yes, it does. It does actually make a lot of sense. And the car analogy is brilliant, because I always feel that from a therapy perspective, it's sort of looking into the past a lot. You're sort of talking a lot about past things, which obviously is sometimes healing. It's quite soothing to get that off sort of your mind and your chest. However, coaching is the now into the future.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's this sort of blank space. It's sort of meeting you where you're at. We're not meeting the past version of yourself. We're meeting the current version, but we're creating the new and the better and the healthier and whatever version you want to be. So that sort of driving, I always sort of say to the guys that I work with that coaching is sort of a guidance. It's guiding you on your hero's journey, and it's taking you on a personal sat nav. Like I'm like a personal sat nav for them. It's giving them direction.
Yeah, you're directing the vehicle, aren't you?
Yeah, without telling them actually this is what you need to do, because nobody likes being told what to do.
And that absolutely is a coach, not I'm not telling anyone what to do at all. They've got all the answers within them. I've got none of the answers. It makes me laugh when, people think you're coming to a coach to get the answers. I've got none of them. I'm facilitating a conversation between my client and their brain, just helping them sort the worms out that are in there. They might have known what's happened to them in the past, but they've got no idea what to do with that to move forward. So I do talk a little bit about the past with my clients, just to get an understanding of why they feel, like they do. So, okay, that's where it's come from. How can we change that mindset so that you can go forward with that rather than just reliving that moment? So yes, I need to know about it, but it's not what I focus on. It's like, how do we move on from that now?
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I like that. And again, everyone's got different experiences. Everyone's sort of got different perspective on stuff, but it's just interesting to hear sort of your take on that. So with you then, obviously COVID was a time, I mean, gosh, we could all talk about, like you say, different world. Yeah. So, but what I'm sort of feeling from this then, Georgie, this was sort of like a pivotal moment in your life. It sort of changed everything for you.
It really was. And I think what you said earlier on as well about therapy, it has to be the right time. You learn the lessons when what's the saying? You listen when, you listen to the teacher when you're ready and you learn the lessons. And I guess at that point in my life, how old was I? 48? I just must have been ready to hear it all and the coaching work. And it really was pivotal because I found someone who could just ask me the right questions at the point that I could hear them and understand what I needed to be doing. I guess the other times that I've had therapy and things that I perhaps wasn't ready to hear it. I don't know. Who knows? We could go back and wonder that forever. But yeah, COVID and just a sudden realization that I was perimenopausal, and it made sense of why I was feeling how I was feeling. And like I say, then dropping into coaching and being asked the pivotal questions about who I was. No one had ever asked me who I was before or what I believed in. And as a woman, and I can only speak as a woman. You can tell me how it feels for a man, but we tend to be putting everyone else first. And I'm doing things for the kids. I'm doing things for my employer. I'm doing things for my husband. I'm doing things for my family. And I forget what it is that I believe in because I'm just living life for their needs. And I forget what my own needs are. So I've never understood really what my values were and what my beliefs were. So being asked those questions was really pivotal for me at that time.
I think so many people will relate to this at this stage in the episode as well. You're absolutely standing right. And I can see that having worked with females myself, the fact that you're forgetting who you are, what you believe in, what you stand for, what you stand against, your whole identity, behaviors, habits, what you enjoy day to day, because you're sort of constantly pleasing.
Absolutely.
Pleasing others, but not serving yourself. So just that came at the right time. So just so we can understand as well, listening obviously for me as well, is obviously you perimenopausal at that time. Obviously you sort of had that sort of, I wouldn't say the door was wide open to coaching, but it just started creeping open. There was something there that wanted to be unlocked.
Yes.
What was life like then for you, Georgie? What was sort of going on day to day? What was you feeling like?
So before I'd had the coaching, literally, like I said, I just felt like I was going through all the motions all of the time. I was overwhelmed. I was in this fog. I couldn't think. It was just it's like walking through mud, I guess. It's really hard to describe. Just walking through a thick fog, not understanding, not being able to see anything, just feeling like every day is going through the motions. That's a really great way to put it, actually, just going through the motions. And I just thought, I just need some time off this roller coaster that I felt I was on to be able to step off and recalibrate life a little bit. I was exhausted. I was tired. I was grumpy. I mean, I was sorting out some odd socks one day. My husband came to me and said, well, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Wild. I went wild. So I was like the rage. Obviously, that was perimenopausal, but I didn't really realise because I was still having periods. I didn't think anything of it. You expect periods to stop at that point. So I was getting all these symptoms that I hadn't put together as being perimenopausal, as well as living a life that didn't fulfill my values. I was in a job that I didn't realise actually I didn't agree with, but didn't align with my values. So, and when you live a life out of line with who you are, it's exhausting actually, but you don't know why, because you're just doing what you need to do. You're just going to work because you've got to pay the bills and you think that's what you've got to do. I'd fallen into this line of work as it was and spent 20 odd years in that work.
Wow.
And you just think, you're just doing what you've got to do. You've got to support your family, haven't you? You've got to get on with it without really realising why I was feeling all those things. So it's just like being in a mud treacle, just exhausting. That's where I was at.
Yeah, you can feel that as well. Just from what you're saying, the fact that it was 20 years, right, that you sort of wouldn't have, I guess, seen the light of who you are as a person. You fell into it, and then 20 years has gone by. But then at the same time, these symptoms coming along. I'm just curious, did any of your friends or your husband say anything to you that now looking back upon reflection were sort of warning signs, but you just sort of ignored it because you were so in this different path?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
They didn't. And I don't know whether, I think it was around COVID time that menopause started to get talked about a bit more. Davina did the show, didn't she? And was that in COVID times?
It was roughly,
Before that, I don't think there'd been a realisation between me and my friends that we were at that stage of our life. I mean, you forget how old I am half the time anyway, so I hadn't made any correlation. I don't know if it'd have even crossed my husband's radar. I think he probably just thought I was being a grumpy lady.
Did they say I'm just wondering, just like trying to piece it together, because normally, like I say, I know we go through the motions of
Mm.
life, right? But I was just wondering if anyone said something where you now look and go, yeah, maybe something was changed. Obviously, you're now saying your life sort of spun and did a 180 when you was
Yeah.
48, and people typically at that sort of age and going through that like time of their life, they blame age, don't they, all the time?
Yeah, I've always been. No one called me out. No one said anything. My husband's very easygoing, so he'd have just thought she's having a bad day and just let me
Right.
get on with it.
Okay.
I mean, and I wasn't raging that often, but enough for me to feel, this. I don't like who I am, but I am this sort of person that I wouldn't have looked externally to think something must be going on. I literally would have just said, I'm just a horrible person. And
Okay.
I'd have internalized it. That's what I did all of my life. And that's what I'd have done at that point. I can't even remember, to be honest, any specific thoughts that I was thinking, because it's just a time of fog, complete
Blur.
fog for me.
Bit
Yeah,
blurry.
blur. It really is.
Yeah. So life was a blur for 20
Mm,
years, right?
yeah.
So in that 20 years, you said something which I thought was really powerful to hear about. You sort of aligned with your values.
Mm.
So you sort of discovered them. In that 20-year blur, did you ever check in with those values and what that meant for you, or did you just sort of dismiss and just kept going through life?
Never had, and maybe this is really naive of me, maybe this says all sorts of things about my childhood, but it was never something that I would ever thought about doing. I
Right.
mean, I guess my values were being the best mum that I could be to my kids, making sure I was providing for them as best I could. So I'd have thought my life was about that, but I wouldn't have thought any more deeply than that. Just not something that was ever, there was no conversation about that, not something that I ever crossed my mind at all. And like I said, that might be really naive of me. Maybe it's the world that I lived in. Maybe it was my childhood. I've no idea, but not something that I ever thought of that I should. I mean, I might have known on a surface level that I like to be an honest person.
Yes.
I wouldn't have thought about what that meant, that if I was doing something at work that I didn't think, not that work was dishonest, but sometimes you can be put in a position where you think, actually, that doesn't feel right. I'd have thought, well, I'm just being ridiculous. I wouldn't have thought, actually, what they're asking me is unreasonable. I'd have always internalized everything. So if something didn't feel aligned, I'd have just taken it on board. Well, obviously, I'm just wrong.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So just if this is starting to make a lot of sense. So what were you exposed to then as a child? What was sort of the values, if you look back on your childhood, being around your family and as growing up, what would you say sort of stood out as a core value?
The core value in my family was everyone do the best they could to get the best for themselves. It was quite a selfish childhood, I think. Obviously, this is my perspective.
Yeah,
My
sure.
family might feel very differently. My dad was never around. Well, he was around for maybe the first couple of years, but no real memories of him. He left before I was 3, I think.
Ah,
Then I had a stepfather who wasn't the best influence, and he was very much getting what he could out of the world for himself. And that's what I was taught to believe. My mum showed me that we have to stand by that person who's financially supporting us, no matter what he's doing. So yeah, it was that sort of, there was emotional abuse from a step grandparent who would tell me how horrible I was regularly, how fat I was, how unkind I was, how lazy I was.
nah.
Yeah, it wasn't a typical family environment. I had 4 sisters, half sisters. I've never called them half sisters, but just easier for
Yeah.
explanation. 2 from my dad, 2 from my mum. I didn't see the 2 from my dad until I was about 13 because they weren't allowed to see me.
Why is that? Why is that? Sorry.
Because my dad had chosen that he wouldn't be in my life, and therefore they weren't allowed to be in my life. My dad's family I was known as the bastard child from my dad's
No
family.
way.
Yeah. And my 2 sisters from my mum's side only lived with us intermittently. They went back and forward to their dad. In fact, one never lived with us all the time. So I never had that family relationship, the traditional family relationship that I thought everyone else had. I mean, I've talked to other people now, and everyone's family's a bit strange in some different ways. We've all got our little ways, haven't we? I never had that, and I lived, seen and not heard. Seen and preferably not seen, to be honest. If I could be hidden away behind a sofa. There was one time we were staying at my stepnan's house, and I was sleeping on the sofa, but I wasn't allowed to sleep on the sofa. I had to sleep behind the sofa on the floor. pushed me out of the way. I used to get smacked if I would. I fell into a huge trough of nettles once in a bikini, and I screamed and screamed because it was painful. Leg slap for making a noise. Yeah. If you can just push Georgie out of the way, that was the childhood I had.
Right. Okay. Very, very tough though, Georgie. Bit of, bit of sort of like left on the wayside. Not, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what it felt like. You see, at the time, it just felt normal.
Of course. Yeah.
But I didn't understand. Well, I say it felt normal, but I also longed for the families that I saw from my school friends. So I guess I knew it wasn't normal. I guess I knew that I felt different from everybody else.
And what do you feel the reason? So obviously you're talking about, I mean, again, I'm really sorry to hear this. Obviously you're saying bastard child. Mm-hmm. Obviously, your stepdad didn't want you to see your sisters, all that stuff. So you're getting pushed out. You're sort of getting that rejection here. Now, looking back, as we talk about this, what do you feel the reason was that they was shutting you out? And yeah, they could see you, but they wasn't hearing you.
I've learnt, and again through my coaching, I've learnt, because I always thought it was a me problem. I thought I was always broken. I thought I needed fixing. I've got no clue why they felt that, but I have learnt that it was their problem. It's them who were broken. I suspect neurodiversities, but I've got no idea because, we'll never know. But so I suspect things like that. I have always kept in my mind that most of them did. There were some of them who were unkind unnecessarily, but Mum particularly did the best they could with what they were taught themselves. That's the problem with parenting, isn't it? It can be the generational problems can just carry on through and through. So I know some of them did the best they could with the information and mental resources that they had, but I don't know why they did it really. Apart from that, all I know is it was a them problem. Now I know it was a them problem.
Yeah, definitely. No, understand that, we would victimize it, obviously, as human beings. We always sort of look at ourselves, all these thought patterns and stories we say. But I don't know, I could be completely off here, but I'm just hearing from what you sort of said early on in this episode about being honest. You're very good at being honest. And a lot of people don't sort of like the honesty. Even though they want it, they don't want to hear it.
Well, it can be uncomfortable, can't it?
Yeah, so I can feel this energy from you, this sort of passion. And I don't know whether they just said they didn't want you to make a noise, didn't want any words to come out of your mouth, because you could say something honestly that they don't want to sort of hear. And as a byproduct of that, you've said that then you internalize things. So from that sort of childhood of slap, shut up, be quiet, whatever, you've then started to take it in and not shit.
Well, that definitely happened. I internalized all of it because of the experiences I had and learned to be quiet and learned that I shouldn't be heard. So that definitely happened. Whether they didn't want to hear me because they thought I could be honest, maybe later on, I think they just, stepdad particularly, just didn't like noisy children. He didn't like children, basically. So It was shoved me out of the way. Didn't like noise, didn't like the overwhelm of it, which is why I maybe suspect some neurodiversity in there. Again, I know he had a really difficult childhood himself, so maybe he did the best with what he could, but at the end of the day, I'm just talking about the effect it had on me.
Sure. Yeah, I know. And I appreciate you sharing it. So when you was a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
First of all, I wanted to be a vet. And then as I was getting older, I wanted to be a midwife. And I started midwifery training at college with the ambition that I was training to be a nurse, which would then go on to be a midwife. And then I wanted to be a health visitor.
All right, nice.
Yeah, so I've always liked looking after other people. But I had a really bad car accident when I was 17, smashed my leg up. I was in hospital basically for a year. And that meant that I'd never physically be able to manage being a midwife. They said, been on the wards, been on my feet.
Of course.
Been around. It was just, the damage to my leg. So I've got one leg quite a lot shorter, a lot of back pain and things. So I couldn't do that, which is why I then fell into admin type work and then later on in construction.
So vet into midwife, then into what a turn of events. Obviously with the car crash, oh my God, such a young age as well, 17. It's that like really prime time to sort of explore, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I was diagnosed with PTSD, probably unsurprisingly after that. And so I was a passenger in a car. We were turning right. A car hit me, so landed on me. So basically I was trapped in a car for several hours while the fire brigade and people cut me out. And I have to be honest, I think I was very institutionalized through that experience because I spent such a long time in the hospital. And for some people that would put them off and make them terrified of hospitals. It made me feel very safe. I think for the first time I felt safe. I was looked after. People came and cared for me. I was trapped. I was on traction, so I was trapped on a bed for the whole time. So I could do very little for myself. So I had people looking after me. And it was, clearly it was a painful experience and clearly isn't great for a 17-year-old to be in a hospital for that time because I should have been at college. I should have been going off to university. I should have been making those friendships. But yeah, it was also a time that I felt cared for. And that's the first time I said that. That's the first time I've had that realisation.
You felt heard.
Yeah.
Somebody who was willing to
have
that space to hear you out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in for quite a long time. I was in and out more a bit later on, but I had to go back. I had metal plates put in my arm and my leg. So I was in and out of hospital, and it was just a safe space for me, to be honest. The safe space as I'm thinking of.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously when you said about the PTSD, completely valid. I mean, gosh, such a young age. Obviously, again, like what you said, and look, we all do this. I mean, I know people say comparison is the thief of joy, but in this case, you can see why. I mean, obviously, you're talking about younger age, sort of looking at other kids' families, sort of like kind of wanting a bit of that. Obviously, you're 17, you've sort of had this, I don't want to say midlife crisis, but sort of a crisis, sort of an event in your life that you couldn't have controlled. Sort of then you feel like that's been taken away from you, that joy and happiness of a young teenage woman going out to the world, exploring. So we always learn things from anything or like events that happen to us, circumstances. What do you feel? I know as much as I know it's a traumatic thing. Obviously, I know you sort of had people looking after you. What did you learn from sort of that experience at such a young age?
What did I learn? Again, I don't know that I put that much thought into it. So look, at the time, I don't know that I learned anything other than I was cross. I was cross that I couldn't be a midwife anymore. I was cross that I had to learn to walk again because the first time I got out of bed after that length of time, I could barely stand up. And then when I did, I was in a plaster from my chest down to my ankle. It was, that was quite difficult. But I guess that was it wasn't my first time of learning resilience because I've had to resilience through my life, but that was the biggest time of resilience, I guess, where I had to just get up, literally pick the pieces back together and learn to walk again, learn to get on with my life again and find a new way of being me. So, I think that was probably the first time where I had resilience, where I had to do the work, the actual physical work, like the physiotherapy as well, but the mental work to just actually want to get up and be able to move again. Whereas as a child, you just pick yourself up and get on, don't you? I don't think I realised what I was doing, but resilience, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really powerful piece, actually, being able to, touch on that. I mean, look, I'm not saying dismissive. It's sort of like, 17, I'm still young, whatever. But actually, you are building a character trait right there from such a young age, from an event that you had to reset.
Yeah, really reset. And just all of me. And then my friends who, I hadn't had loads of friends at school because I'm quite an introvert by nature. And obviously the life that I'd had meant that friends didn't come back to school. We didn't have noisy friends around from school. But the friends that I had from school had gone off and done their own thing. So I came out not really with any friends because they'd all left. They'd all gone off to their places, off to uni, off to, whatever they were doing. Their lives had carried on, whereas mine had very much stopped for that length of time. So I had to not only find some work again, but I had, find some work, find what I was going to do. But I had to build up new friendships because I hadn't got any of those around because they'd gone, basically.
Right. So it's a moment in your life where, they sort of, that's what I'm saying, life goes on as we say that, don't we? And obviously people move, people come in your life, they leave your life. So it was a massive start for you. Obviously you would have felt lonely at this stage. It was sort of, I guess your emotions was a little bit all over the place. What happened next then after that? Is that when you is that when you sort of looked for the admin roles or?
Well, my mum actually got me a job in the county council where she worked. So when I just went into that, I was a little bit disgruntled because I hadn't even thought about what I wanted, but I didn't know what to do. So I just got on and did it. What I did do later on, so it would have been about 3 years later, I obviously with the car accident, there was a whole legal case going on, and I was having a lot of interaction with solicitors and things. This is where the trait in me is like, I could do this better. And I got a little bit cross with him. I thought, you know what, I could do this. What's he doing? Why am I paying him all this money? And I decided to go off and do a law degree. So I did stop the job and I went off and did a law degree. However, also being me, because I did tend to go into things head first without thinking, right, I can do that, so I'm going to go off and do it. I'm going to prove a point. That's all I was doing it for, was to prove a point. And I loved learning about the law. But I also realised, actually, this is probably the first time I thought about values. I realised that I didn't like all it stood for in many ways.
Okay.
So actually, yeah, that was the first point that I realised that didn't fit with me. I didn't understand it was because of my values, but I knew that I didn't like the system, the legal system and things. So I never actually, I did my degree, got a 2-1, not too bad, you know. And,
Well done.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then thought, I don't want this. That's not a career I want. And actually what I knew I wanted at that point was to be a mum. So I had my first child really quite early. So I was 25 when I had him, and I didn't work for the first year. But then after that, I went and worked in a school in another admin role. Again, I think I chose a school because it was an institution and I feel safe in that sort of environment. So I did that for a little while, got made redundant and didn't fall into a construction role. I needed a job, found a job in construction, and that's where that journey started.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff here. So just going back to the sort of obviously law degree, massive different sort of avenue here.
Absolutely.
What did you stand against?
So there was some parts of the law I loved. I love family law, and I was really quite good at that. So if I'd have done it, that's where I'd have gone. For me, there's some people who work within the law who will charge as much money as they possibly can for people in their most vulnerable moments. And I guess I could have worked in a sector where I could have counteracted that a little bit, but I didn't really think beyond that. For me, it's the magistrate system, where people who have got no legal training come and decide on the whole future of other people's lives. I really didn't like that. And I know there's lots of different other ways that I could have worked in law, and there is a lot of me that disagreed with that. There is also a part of me, if I'm totally honest, which, you know, I have to be, if I'm totally honest, was a little bit scary about standing up in courts and having to, you know, well, obviously barristers mainly do that, but you still have to stand up and talk in front of people. And I found that a little bit scary and a little bit intimidating. I found the whole system intimidating and pompous, which is so not me. All the Latin speak just because it looks bigger, it looks cleverer to earn some more money. Just the whole ethos of it just didn't sit with me. And I guess I could, again, like I say, I could have found areas, but because I'd just gone into it headstrong thinking, well, I can do that. And yes, I could. But that's just a really great example of, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do it.
Yes.
You know, and it doesn't mean that we have to do it just because I'm good at it or could do it. Doesn't mean it's right for me. And it just wasn't right for me. I just, the pomp and ceremony of it, just like the solicitors that I knew were all quite pompous. I mean, and bearing in mind, this is 30 odd years ago, you know, it's probably changed quite a lot. Hopefully there's more down to earth people, but yeah, I felt very uncomfortable in the environment.
Hey guys, are you feeling burnt out or wanting a quick break away from the daily grind? Well, our friends over at Cyro Boca Place offer the ultimate destination for those seeking a blend of luxury wellness, adventure, and restoration. If you know me, you know I'm fully invested in health and well-being. So if you don't prioritize yourself first, how are you supposed to be showing up for others around you? Looking for an experience like this, head over to www.cyrohotels.com.
Yeah, and I can see why, though. Just from hearing you here, and you know, you stand very much by authenticity.
Yeah.
And like I say, being down to earth.
Yes.
And that seemed to be a completely different side of the coin, you know, in regards to that.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I could have found my way, but I wasn't strong enough to have done that within the law. And yeah, that wasn't for me. But, you know, it was still great. I learned a lot there, made some nice friends there and had a great time. But
yeah,
needed to find new things afterwards.
Yeah, so with that then, so you'd found friends, obviously, I guess, then you sort of, did you still stay in touch with those friends today, or did you move on?
Because obviously I had my first baby very young, well, I think very young at 24, 25, and they were all graduating from uni in law, obviously, and
yes.
they most of those went on to use their degree. So they were going off again in a different direction, certainly not having children. And so then my real friendships formed from when I had my children and the friendships you make through doing that.
Yeah, definitely. So, what's been your highlight of being a mum at such a young age? What's sort of like something that you could share here that has been the best feeling and the best thing about being a mum?
Best thing about being a mum, the best thing about it's just magical. Just the love that you grow inside of you for another being, and the way they make you laugh. Just them. It's not like an experience that I have that's like, oh, that's because I'm a mum, that's great. It's just having those boys in my life who are just everything, who are just super fabulous people, who and now as they're growing up, I see them going off and living their dreams, and I'm just so blinking proud of them for doing what they want to do in their life. And it's just that pride that comes from seeing them as they're growing through each of the stages. And you've got a daughter, haven't you? And just seeing each stage they go on and they move and they do something, and it's just the wonder of what they learn. They're looking at the world through their eyes, I guess, and seeing how exciting it is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so genuine. It feels really sort of like so genuine and raw as well. I love that. And it's sort of a simple message as well, George. You're not sort of like going around and saying this and that and extravaganza. It's sort of like just the love for them and seeing what. So just on that note, then, what core value would you say that you've sort of ingrained in them that now you can see as they go through their life?
Well, again, it's still not something I'd talked about even with having children, but what I hope I've taught them, and I think I have by seeing them as they're getting through the age, is to go and live their life for them and do what makes them. I find it really hard to say to them, I just want you to be happy, because I think that's a huge pressure, because we can't be happy all of the time, can we? But just go and what makes your heart sing. Yeah, so again, being authentic to themselves.
So it's that expression, right? As a kid, isn't it? It's like we express ourselves, but then I guess as we go through the conditioning of life and what we sort of dim that expression, and then we sort of because have you found? I mean, I'd love to know this because I know I was talking to somebody actually yesterday about this. We get to a point, and honestly, you would have found it even at 17, right, where they sort of come to you, and there's that frustration element of I don't know what I want to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say sort of do. Like what makes your heart sing. I just wondered as a parent as well, because I think this is a really powerful bit, is how you would sort of not say to them to do what makes you, but how you would sort of help them along that sort of lost period.
I know it's really hard because all my life I've said, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And it's only recently I've stopped saying that.
You wanted to be a vet?
Yeah.
And a midwife? Yeah.
Exactly. And then when I couldn't do any of those things, what do I want to do with my life?
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I've been saying that for years. The conversation with them about, even like through school, and when you have to choose your options and things, choose things that make you happy, choose things that you enjoy doing, go and do that. You're not stuck to any one career. If you choose to do something and you find it doesn't make you happy, fine. You've learned a lesson there. That's great. You've learned something about yourself. Failure isn't a bad thing. Failure is a learning. It's showing something about yourself. I mean, one of my boys tried uni twice, and each time he just realised it wasn't for him. He tried it once, he thought it was the course, so he tried a different course. It wasn't for him. And I'm so proud of him that he had the guts to stand up and say, do you know what, this isn't working for me, this is making me miserable, I'm coming back home, rather than just feeling like he had to go through with it. So I hope, and I think I'm seeing with them, that they can just try these things out, experiment, see what works for them. And something that makes their heart sing this month might not next month. And we've done that with like their activities after school. And I always worried I was making them a bit flaky, but I just want them to try everything and see how it goes. Try the football, try the rugby, try the piano, try all these things. Let's see what works for you. And we commit to it for a certain length of time, so they've only got to do that. And I don't want them thinking they can just give up all of the time. But if something's really making them miserable inside, internally, then I want them to find something that doesn't do that for them. And those are the sort of conversations that we've had. Yeah, I don't know if I've shown them that very well, but I hope I'm showing it to them now through doing what I've done with work.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I think the big word there is experiment. You know what I mean? Life is an experiment. You know, we know there's no right or wrong. I mean, I guess there's always learnings. Like, I think I like the bit where you said, you know, failure is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Why? I don't want to say why, but yeah, why do you feel people, or what do you think people, why do you feel they deem it as a bad thing, failure?
Societal pressure, isn't it, has become success or failure. I mean, what even is success anyway? But we see success as, I think a lot of people see success as making money, getting yourself into a position, societal position. I think it starts, it started on the education system, but I think it even starts there, where you've got to aspire to be in a vocation rather than, actually, do you know what? I want a really nice quality of life where I can be doing different things. And actually, I'm happy if I'm a bin man. That's frowned upon, isn't it? Straight away. So, and if you don't conform all the way along, it's a failure. And I think so many people internalize that as a bad thing rather than thinking, well, that didn't work, so what will work? And that wasn't a failure, such a negative connotation. The failure is lessons all of the time. It's not a bad thing. We've learned something from it. And it's just societal pressure. And until some of us start breaking free of that, it's never going to change, is it?
No, exactly. And I can agree with everything. I know even, parents listening on this, I'm taking this on board, by the way, when our daughter starts growing up and stuff, is definitely that sort of conditioning, that societal pressure. I guess when you sort of start hitting the exams and sort of like higher grade groups of people, you sort of get that conditioning, that different, you're the clever people, you're the dumb people, all that stuff.
And then even if you're in one of the higher groups, I know my son felt that he was put on this path, that he had to go to university. And I hope to goodness I never ever said that to him. And in fact, I know I told him actually he could try other things, and we looked at apprenticeships and things. But society puts you on this path if you're a certain, what they consider intelligence levels. And it's just like, we're not a monolith. We don't all fit into these boxes. And I guess I've learned a lot of that as well, because one of my boys is autistic, and just the education system just didn't work for him because he doesn't fit into society the way society expects that he should. And then that becomes a huge pressure, and it's just a vicious circle then. So it's finding confidence. I hope that's what I've given my boys, if nothing else, a confidence to be who they are, irrelevant of what anyone else thinks of them, thinks they should be.
And that there is a great sort of insight as well, which actually sort of really does lead on to the next thing really good, because that's the biggest thing I feel that weighs a lot of people down, is that what you've just sort of said, that people aren't being who they are. They are conditioned to what people want them to be, or,
Absolutely.
Pleasing. Again, we're sort of doing a bit of a loop here. So you said about breaking free. When did Georgie break free?
Georgie broke free with her values and her beliefs, and those limiting beliefs that we all can have. And when she finally grew, she talked about me in the third person, when I finally grew confident in who I was and what I wanted to give back to the world and what I wanted to do for the world, and I decided I was going to be a coach because I wanted to be the coach that I had needed, and I knew that I wanted to help women feel confident in who they are. And my business is very deliberately named I Am Georgie Smith, because after my coaching, I finally was proud to stand up and say, I am Georgie Smith. I hated my name through all of my life.
Really?
Hated it.
How come?
I thought I just didn't like the name, but I now know that it was because I was trying to make myself small all the time. If I had to say my name, I was putting myself out there.
Right.
So I've always been shrinking myself as much as I possibly could. And I think that was, the name was the front cover for all of that. And I was finally proud to say, I am Georgie Smith. I'm really proud of that. And that is what I want for every woman, to be able to stand up and be proud of who they are, be confident in who they are, be comfortable in who they are, and know that they've got a place in this world to live a life that is exciting for them, that isn't going through the emotions, that is every bit as joy that they deserve, because we all deserve that. We all deserve to live a life that brings us joy and happiness. Obviously, there's difficult times, but we all deserve that. And I want everyone to be proud of who they are. And so that's why the business is called I Am Georgie Smith. And so through my coaching, that's what I learned for myself. And that's when the light was switched on.
Yeah, this is good. And I love that I am. It's very, very strong when you sort of say that I am enough, or I am worthy, all those things that people don't, I guess, even say out loud. They might try and program it in their mind, but brilliant sort of piece there. When was the moment, or what was the moment that switch flipped? So it was, say it's off and then it's gone on. When was that big sort of eye opener?
I've got to be honest, there isn't one moment. And I always expected there to be a moment where I woke up one day like, this is me. It was much more of a gradual process through the coaching. I think there was a huge step towards it the day I worked on all my values and I sat down and I journaled about it. And I mean, which is so not something I would have ever done before. Even journaling, I'd have thought that's all a little bit woo-woo.
Yeah.
And I love the woo-woo now. Someone told me, just try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, but it could be the moment that moves your life forward. So that's been my philosophy. We just try everything, see. If it's not for me, it's not for me. That's fabulous. But if it is for me, I've learned something great from that. So I sat down and I realised how important living a life in accordance with your values and your beliefs is. And so that was a switch. Then later in the year, last year, I did something that I never thought I did. I went on holiday without any of my family. I went to Bali on a retreat.
Wow.
And I'd never been anywhere really. And I'd certainly never flown on my own. So that was a huge step. And I went there and it was while I was there and I was just doing lots of journaling, lots of talking on the retreat. And I realised that it was never me that was broken. I thought I needed to go somewhere to fix the pieces back together. I thought I was a jigsaw puzzle and there was just one last piece missing. That's never been the case. We're never the finished product, I don't believe. We're always moving. So there's always more of me that can be added to me. I think I can grow and I can develop, but I'm not broken because of that. I'm whole. I'm just going to grow even more. And while I was away in Bali, I realised that I wasn't broken. It had been the people that had brought me up. Like I said before, the people that had brought me up that had been broken. Well, in fact, they probably weren't broken, but it was, it was that whole environment. It wasn't me, it was them. And it was at that point that I could stand up and say, it's never been about me. And that's I guess maybe Bali was the time where it just finished, but it was a process. But Bali completed that process for me.
Yeah, it created that breakthrough. Yeah, that was your moment of release. That was your weight off the shoulders, what had been for so many years.
And it was a bit about that space that we talked about before, having the space to stop and process the thoughts that go through your mind. I see so many people who keep themselves busy, not just because we see busyness as productive and as a value, but also busy because they're scared to stop and listen to those thoughts. And they're scared of what they'll hear and what they'll feel in their body. And I had to do that in Bali. It was just, that was the whole point of it. That's why I'd gone away, to teach my boys that it's okay to do things just for us sometimes. I'd never, ever in my life had just a holiday just for me. And because I knew that I would learn something massively out there. So I'd done all those things. So I needed to make the very most of that time. I needed to do it justice by being there. So I stopped and I listened, got in tune with the body and listened to the thoughts that were in there.
Okay, I love this. So I'm going to ask this question. What made you book that trip? What did that retreat? What was the biggest selling point? I don't want to say it's all sell, but what got you like hooked to go, I'm going to do it?
I've been looking for a retreat for ages because I knew I needed some space away. The coaching that I'd had made me realise that I needed some time, just not because I wanted to be away from my family, but I needed time to think, because if you're with your family, there's always something to be done. There's always something to be done in the house. There's always ironing to be done, all those sorts of things. You can make the excuses all of the time. And they seemed like really good reasons, but they were excuses. And I happened to mention to my business coach at the time that I'd been looking for a retreat, but couldn't find anything that just fitted quite right for me. And then a few months later, she said, I'm running one. Do you want to come? It's in Bali. And I didn't even think about it. And I'm so glad I didn't, because if I'd have thought about it, I'd have said, oh, no, I couldn't possibly spend that much money on me. And I just said, right, I'm in. And that was it. And then there was no going back then, because I was in. And luckily, my family were really supportive. No one batted an eyelid. And so I was off. And then I booked it a year in advance, and I spent the year then building up to it, doing things on my own so that I could actually physically get on the plane, because that was quite a scary thing to me, getting on a plane on my own, two planes on my own across the world. So I had to build up to doing things. I had to go and learn to eat in a restaurant on my own, because I know so many women who won't even eat in a restaurant on their own. And I would never have done it before I put it. And it feels weird when you're doing out there to be by yourself, to give yourself that treatment, that luxury. But I know so many women who feel really uncomfortable with doing that. So I had to learn to do those things, because I went before the retreat. I went to Bali before the retreat. So I was totally on my own in a hotel for quite a few days before I joined the others at the villa. So I had to do that. And just doing those things just gives you such a confidence.
Yeah, it's, I'm smiling because you know, I've obviously being on this podcast, having conversations with other guests, it's just that sort of complete unknown, refreshing environment with people that you walk into and you don't even have to say any words. You sort of already feel welcomed.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel comfortable at home. I mean, Bali is such a beautiful country and the people there are so welcoming. So it just felt a really safe environment, a really safe place to be, and just perfect for me to go off. I mean, I might have been able to do it anywhere where I had peace and space, but why not do it somewhere as beautiful as that?
I know, absolutely. And the fact that what you've done really, again, going back through the episode, you sort of said about the upbringing of family being quite selfish. Well, you've just been selfless.
Yeah.
So you sort of like flip that on its head, which is great. And actually, you're able to show up better for your kids.
Absolutely. And this is what I talk about all of the time. And it's really difficult. It's been difficult for me as a mum, and I hear it from other mums. And I'm sure dads feel the same points too, but you feel like you've got to put your kids first at all times. And so many women come to me and they object to coaching because they don't feel that they should be giving up that time or that expense for themselves. But once they start having that coaching, they realise how much more they have to give to the rest of their family, because once you're living a life that is comfortable to you, that is in line with you, the energy levels that come back, the brain space that you've got to give is just tenfold. And they find they're so pleased because they find they've got all this energy they didn't know they have, and they can give so much more to the people that they were scared they were taking from by giving something to themselves, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. And you're okay. It all makes sense. Honestly, it really does. Obviously, I mean, I know people say you should never ask women their age, but I just feel like the transformation you've been on is really important for people to understand so they can look at their life as well and be inspired by what you've done. You obviously had this place where you was in this sort of blur. Life just was going through the motions for 20 years. That pivotal change was COVID. So you're now a business owner. You're helping women basically through coaching that you really wanted at that time. You did gain it, but now you're sort of like becoming that coach for others to help them, you know, shine light and have confidence. How old are you now, Georgie, in your life?
I am 53, and I'm absolutely fine with anyone asking my age. So yes, I'm 53.
Okay, that's good.
And I'm absolutely fine with it because I'm proud of aging. But and that's exactly what I want to get away from, where the world thinks that we should be ashamed of our age.
I know, yeah.
It's a privilege. Each birthday is a privilege and an honour.
Absolutely.
Do you know what? Someone bought me, this might seem really ridiculous, but another of the pivotal moments actually for me was someone bought me a necklace for my 50th birthday, and it was 5 rings all joined together, obviously symbolising all the decades. And I'd been dreading my 50th birthday. I'd been really sad about it. And I got that. And that symbol just made me realise all the things that I've experienced through my life that gave me a power. Don't take away from me. I've just had so many experiences in my life that I can relate to other people in one way or another. And it was almost like, you're actually quite wise, Georgie, and we put ourselves down for bigging ourselves up, don't we? But there's such a lot that I can help women with because I've experienced such a lot. And that symbol of the 5 decades of life that I've had was magical for me. And just like growing old, I'm just getting more and more knowledge all the time that I just want to share with everybody. The world can be quite a nasty place at the moment, can't it? But there is so much joy there as well. But I want to make sure that I'm helping the world as best I can with the ripple effect, with one woman at a time. So every woman I help, the effect that it has on the people around her, who then has effect on the people around them. And if we can all just spread that kindness and that joy and that warmth, I think the world will be a nicer place. And that's all I want to be able to do.
Yeah, and you can tell you want to do that, George, anyway. Just hearing you, I think even people hearing me even say this can feel that as well, even if they're listening to it in the ears or they're watching you. Obviously, if they're watching you, they can tell from your emotion that it's sort of, wow, it sort of hits you. At the end of the day, you can't give what you don't have. And obviously, it's very clear to sort of feel from you that you found a space, if we use the word space, where you was heard, you was understood, and you was listened to. And that opened up your mind to explore the possibilities of removing the excuse and barrier of what most people are conditioned to, which is can't do that, you're too old, your age is. You've left a employed mindset and role that you was conditioned to,
Mm-hmm.
and you've broke free through somebody guiding you and being exposed to new environments, exposed to new adventures, right?
Yeah.
Like traveling the world, and you're now your own business owner at the age of 53, which is not by any means old. So I'd love to know now, if we go into the 80-year-old version, I know that's, you'll make 80, you'll be glowing. What would that 80-year-old version of Georgie be saying to the 53-year-old Georgie now?
That she's so proud that she's done it. So proud that she's done it. And you're absolutely right. You can't give what you haven't got. And yeah, that's absolutely true. So I've gone and given myself the space to be able to give. And yeah, 80-year-old me will be so proud that she's not just carried on doing what was expected of her for the sake of it, that she's not going to end up living a life where she hasn't got a legacy that she's proud of, that she's not given to the world in the way that she wants to. So I'll be so proud of myself that I've got to that point with no regret on what I've done.
The regret part, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good. It's so good what you shared there, Jordan. You can tell that you're very aligned with your values, because do you know what? The biggest regret people have when they sort of, get to that place where maybe the life is coming to an end is not living a life true to themselves.
Exactly. I think I did hear that the other day, that the biggest regret on the deathbed is living a life for other people.
Yeah. Bronnie Ware, the top 5 regrets of dying. She talks about that. Yeah, it's the biggest one.
And it is. And it's just, I don't want to get there. And somebody asked me what my legacy is going to be. And that's what I want my legacy to be, the kindness and the holding space. And I think holding space is used quite a bit, but the safe space is used quite a bit. But I just want women to feel safe to open their hearts to me so that they can grow and have the space for themselves. Yeah.
Listen, Georgie, you're still creating your legacy. So if somebody asks you that question, you say, I'm still creating it, but I know where it's at right now. You're still in it's still in its infancy stage. You're at that place now where you're so authentic. You're so true to yourself, and actually you're giving back to other females that are, was or are currently struggling with what you've been through. You're sort of helping them through that journey as well, which I think is absolutely insane. So look, you're at this stage in life where you've already said about you've sort of gained so much wisdom. You want to give back to others. For people sort of listening in right now, they've heard your journey. What's one piece of wisdom out of everything that you would say or give to the audience that are listening in today?
It's always going to come back to the authenticity and the honesty, but the honesty with themselves. Got to be honest with yourself before you can be honest with anybody else. It's always going to come back to digging in to who they are, finding out who they are, working out their values, looking at their beliefs and being true to those, because I don't think you can go wrong if you're true to those, because you're showing the world who you are, whatever those values are, and then you'll find your people. But yeah, it's always going to be around that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And what would, just so if someone's like, okay, I hear you, but I have no idea where I would start to find that within myself. What would be a first sort of action step that would help them discover?
Quite simple, that bit, actually. Well, it's not simple to do it, but you can get a list of values from anywhere online. You can have, put in list of values and you'll get all sorts of things. And it is about sitting with yourself and having some quiet time to do that and looking through them and seeing what feels good. And it's listening to your body. So you'll get a gut reaction. And I think we're tuned out of listening to our gut reactions. We intellectualize everything. So we think about it rather than just taking that initial gut reaction and going through it and writing, first of all, choosing, 20 maybe, and having seen how they feel. And then going through them and trying to work out why they feel good to you, how they feel good to you. And obviously, you probably will have 20 values, but you want to get it a little bit shorter than that. I try to get down to about 5, because if you're going to use your values to help you guide your life, you can't have 20 different things. It's not going to be a great compass. You want about 5 to help you make decisions according to them. But you want to be really clear on why they're important to you and what matters about them, and on writing a sentence about each of them. So honesty is one of my top values, as I said, and writing down why honesty is. And I know for me, it just makes me feel on edge the whole time if I'm not being honest. I feel like I'm watching my back all the time. I'm feeling really uncomfortable. So I write that down so I know how I'm going to feel if I'm not honest.
Yeah.
Fun's really important to me. Laughter's really important to me because it gives us the hormones, doesn't it? It makes us feel really good. So writing down. So it's going through all those values and working out. For some people, it might be financial abundance. And it's also really important to remember there's no right or wrong. You're not a good or a bad person. There's no moral value put to any of these. This is just who you are. And then that's absolutely fine. So for some people, financial abundance. And I get people saying then, oh, but that's not very good, is it? But it's fine. Why not? That's your value. That's absolutely fine. It's your right to feel like that. So yeah, just working through all of those, which you can do anywhere. Or if anyone ever contacted me, I'd send them a list of values. It's absolutely not a problem. But working through that, because I think that digs into who you are at your very core. And if you understand why those values are important to you, what they mean to you by sitting and journaling about them, then it really sort of comes home to you.
Yeah, and I think it's what you shared there. It does make a lot of sense. I mean, people. I will say this though, George. Like, this is good that you've said that, because we can all say, you find out who you are, but it's sort of like, well, what can be that first step? What can sort of open up that mind? And I think again, just you saying quiet time. We don't really have much quiet or silent time, or just sitting. Maybe with a pen and piece of paper and just seeing what's on our mind. We do overthink things.
We do.
Yeah, absolutely. But do you know what? It's a shame, actually. I'm saying this because it's been such a great episode. We are actually sort of getting towards the end of this. I know. We were saying before, weren't we? You was like, I can definitely talk about my life's journey, and it's gone in so many different terms, which has been honestly so good. But this is a question, obviously, I do love to ask every guest at the end of the episode, just because it's always nice to sort of hear your perspective on it. So yeah, Georgie, what does mastering your life mean to you?
Mastering my life means success, but success in my own terms. It means that I've not run away from the things that scare me. It means I've tried to do the things that have scared me. It means I've pushed my comfort zone, and that I don't always like this, but at the end of my life, I am the best version that I could possibly have been through my life. Now, I don't always like the best version of me sentiment, because I think we're always the best version of me, but we're always growing. But there comes an end point, doesn't there? And I think if at that end point of my life, I have been the best version of me, that I have been kind, not necessarily nice, but kind to the people around me. I've had gratitude for the things around me, and I have, not run away from my fears, then I'll have mastered my life. If I allow the fear of growth to overcome my life, I think I'll be disappointed.
I've not heard this one before. Fearless. No, it's nice. It's a really sort of, I can tell it means, it's so inner work to you. It's really, really good. I love that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's so easy to limit ourselves because we're scared of making the change. And it's not always the best thing to use, but it works for me quite often. I use an anti-goal. And I certainly used that when I was making the big changes, as I was learning about myself through the perimenopausal journey, is, did I want to stay where I was, or did I want to change and move forward? And it was really scary to push my comfort zone and make those changes, but I was a hell of a lot more scared to stay where I was. That was a lot scarier to me. And I use that an awful lot. Do I want to stay where I am? It's comfortable, yes, but there's always going to be that what if, and that inside churn in my gut of, there's more to life than this for me. I know there's more. There's more out there. I can achieve so much more. So I've got to push myself. And don't get me wrong, I do it in little steps that are a little bit more comfortable than taking the big leaps. But I'm always pushing the growth zone if I can.
Yeah, you say that though, George, but you say the gradual, but somebody provided you an opportunity to take a plane to Bali, and you did it right in that moment.
I did, but like I say, I'd got quite a good time length on that, so that I could do things to make it a little bit more comfortable. Like in my 50th year, this is ridiculous, but in my 50th year, every month I did something to celebrate it. But some of those things were scary things.
Yeah.
One of them was to learn to go down an escalator. At the age of 50, I could not go down an escalator. I'm petrified.
Wow.
So I did that. I learned to do that. I went to a restaurant to eat on my own. But to start with, I went to a cafe because it seemed a little bit less intimidating. So yes, I did take the opportunity, and I'm always brave in the moment. It's when it's building up to it. I'm thinking, I wish I hadn't said yes to that.
Okay.
So I do things that can then build me up to it. So right, I know I'm going to have that experience. What can I do that will make that experience a little bit easier?
Okay. So it's a little bit like reverse engineer it. You've got the sort of pinnacle, the mountain, but then you've got to do the climb. So you're climbing to the top. Right. Okay. No, that's really good. And I think that's a sort of really good piece to sort of like conclude this episode, because it's a lot about authenticity, being you as well. I think being you is being fearless as well. I think if you're following who you are, it's sort of not being afraid of who you are as well.
It makes it really easy. Yes. I mean, I think there's a coming to terms with who you are sometimes, because if you think, well, actually, I didn't think I was like that, that's a change. And a lot of the women that I speak to, there is a grief process to go through. And a lot of the women do say, I just want to be who I was. And I have to bring them in that actually, I'm really sorry, but you're not I'm not sorry because you're fabulous as you are now, but you're not who you are, who you were, who you are now. Let's learn about who you are now. But once you get to terms with that, it is easier to be fearless because you're comfortable with that person. So yeah, fearless.
No, love that. Honestly, so good. And thank you as well for sharing all of that. Obviously, Georgie, if anyone's listening in on our episode today, in this moment, I want to connect with you. Where can people find you?
I am across all the socials, obviously, as you'd expect. I am Georgie Smith. You'll find me on well, actually, you won't find me on any of them. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I'm learning whether I want to do TikTok or not. I've heard it's a young people's thing, but I don't know. But we shouldn't put age barriers on it, should we?
Exactly, yeah. Just do it if you want to do it.
Go for it. So I'm on the 3 main socials, and I'm here to chat. My DMs are always open. If anybody has got something going on and they wanted to drop me a message and say, I don't know how to deal with this, I'm more than happy to send voice notes back and we can talk through different ways that we can manage whatever they're feeling. I'm always open for that. I love chatting and getting to know people. So come to me in those messages and those DMs and we can get to know one another.
Absolutely. No. Well, listen, that's a nice piece as well, inviting people into conversation, because if people don't know that they can do that, they won't do it. It's sort of, again, being seen, being heard and listened to. And so we'll make sure that all of that is in the show notes so people can find your handle, whether they connect with you via all 3 or, just one of them mainly. But look, final piece from me, Georgie, it's been a pleasure to have you on this podcast. And obviously, I'm going to say wish you all the best, but not like you need it. But thank you for, investing this time with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved chatting to you. It's been great.
Thanks again.
Thank you.